It's time for the Wally and Methot Show, presented by SportsInteraction.com. Now, here are your hosts, Brent Wallace and Mark Methot.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wally and Methot Show. I'm Brent Wallace. He's 13-year NHL veteran Mark Methot, who has an opinion or two he likes to share occasionally. It is episode 69, the last day of May, as we jump into June. Meth, by the way, everything good in your world, right? Power's back on. They got the lawn mowed. Pool's good.
Can't complain, Wally. How are you?
I'm good. Good. I just mowed the lawn. Everything.
I'm just sorry. I'm laughing at the intro. That's all. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, I should probably script those occasionally. This show is always brought to you by SportsInteraction.com. Go to SportsInteraction.com/Wally Methot for the most competitive live daily odds, which includes now betting on the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, which we'll get to in a bit. Also, our guest today is, I don't want to call him a guest anymore. He's just like the guy, our crazy uncle, we'll call him. Ian Mendes from The Athletic stops by, as he always does. He's the most appeared guest on our show. Brought to you by, as always, Whitewater Beer. Go to whitewater.ca. They have a new beer out, Meth. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. It is called Sunsetter, and it is extremely good. So it's a lemon lime.
I think I've had it.
A lemon
lime.
Is it a new
lager.
one? Yeah, they just released it.
So I haven't. Okay.
So, but I'm telling you, go now. I went to the LCBO to see, and it's out. It's sold out. It's sold out online at the moment. That's how good it is. But it's called Sunsetter Beach Lager. Little lemon lime. All season long, you find yourself seeking the sun and lingering outside to catch the sunsets. Well, Sunsetter Beach Lager was made for those long summer nights for you and I to sit by the pool and enjoy a beverage. That's me hinting to get invited over, which I never do. All right. Without further ado, let's bring in Ian Mendes from The Athletic, who wrote this week about Jason Spezza's retirement, had some interesting interviews. He put the line back together just to have this chat. Mendes, welcome to the show.
Crazy uncle checking in. Why would you call me the crazy uncle of this show?
I don't know. I didn't have anything else at the moment. I apologize. I didn't have something else is basically what it comes down to.
You know what? I think as a guy, there's two labels you don't want. One is crazy uncle, and the other one is creepy. No, like, right? Like, you don't want to be creepy, and you don't want to be the crazy uncle. And yet you've gone ahead and painted me with the crazy uncle.
Well, I didn't call you creepy.
Yeah, that's true. Of the two, I'd rather be the crazy uncle. Yeah.
Before we get to the Jason Spezza retirement, I would like to see how I'd like to check in. You look fresh and cleaned up and showered and shaved. How was life and the world without Wi-Fi for like 5 days?
This is Wally fishing for compliments.
I'm not.
He bailed us out big time. Like, I mean, and so I'm glad I can use this platform to actually, I thank you in person. Let me thank you here on your show.
No,
because we didn't get power back until Friday. So we were 6 days without power. And like 3 days into it, I decided to tweet out, we don't have power. And I wasn't tweeting out to try and garner sympathy. I just felt like there was lots of people in Ottawa without power. And there was some solidarity going on. Within 2 minutes, I get a text from Wally, call me. Now, Meth, you've been on the other side of when you get those texts from Wally, call me. You're like, oh God. Like,
yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah. So I'm thinking, oh man, like something's gone down. And he's like, hey, I got a generator for you. And he drove it over all the way from Stittsville to my house. He set it up. He ran our extension cords in, reconnected our deep freeze, got our Wi-Fi going, all that stuff. So he deserves a ton of credit because for 3.5 days, we lived off of the generator he provided us.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, did he also bring the gas for you, or
you know what? He brought a jerry can that was whatever. Like it was. I only had to fill it up one time, but I didn't think I was going to be using this thing for 3 days. And then all the gas stations were closed in the area. But he brought it over, and he didn't want any. I had to fight tooth and nail to try and take this guy out for lunch to thank him. And he wouldn't eat. Like, we had to fight. We fought in front of the waitress. He didn't. So
that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
But you know what? The funny
First
part
time
was
Matt's ever heard a nice story about Wally. So he's like, wow, this is.
I couldn't mow my lawn because you had my gas can.
Oh, see, there we
go. So my son, he didn't have to do it. Anyway, okay, I'm glad to hear you got the power back. And I wasn't fishing, but I appreciate it. Moving on. Jason Spezza retires. Number 19 retires after 19 seasons. Matthew played with Jay, and you played with him in Dallas as well. What do you remember about Jason Spezza, the player?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody knows his on ice contributions. I'm not going to go there. Terrific player. I think, and I was saying this yesterday, I think people don't realize how great of a communicator he is. I know we see the funny videos where he's giggling and laughing, and it kind of comes across a type of way. And I know you guys can touch on this as well. You've had plenty of conversations with him. He's just a really intelligent human being. And it's particularly obviously when it comes to hockey. So, I mean, just thoughtful and calm, when he's coming to talk to, he never rattles easy. I've never really seen him have a bad day. I've seen him get upset in the room during a game just to kind of get a rise out of the locker room. But on a day-to-day basis, just always there at the rink, there before most players. He's there. He's hanging around long time after games as well, always working on his sticks. But for me, I guess the last memories I would have had of him would have been in Dallas when I was playing there. And he was a mentor, right? Like that was the role that he had taken on at that point in his career. And he was terrific. He was great with the young guys. He was really, really helpful. And I'm very lucky that I got to play with him.
Mendes, I don't know about you, but for me, it was like, and we see this a lot now with guys retiring because we've been in around the league for so long. We've covered them the entire time. And that was it for Spezza. Like I've covered Jason Spezza since he was a 16-year-old at the World Junior Training Camp. And actually, even before that, he played in a game, an international game at 15 for Canada at the Civic Center. Anyway, point was like, it's kind of like, it's a little nostalgic to go back and think all this stuff that you've gone over the years with someone who has treated you so well. It's like, I don't know if it's like breaking up with someone or losing a family member. What it's just, it's a guy that's no longer there for you to chat with, it seems.
Yeah. And, like Meth said, he was a great communicator, especially with us in the media, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, he would be on my Mount Rushmore of players that I dealt with in terms of from a media perspective that are like a superstar. Like he was a star. He was a superstar player who always had the time for us. I would put Marty Brodeur on that list and Steven Stamkos and guys that are like elite player. Alfie would be on that list too. There's my Mount Rushmore right there. the four guys. But the one that I will always remember, and I always felt like, just like you, Wally, I was actually working in media relations when Jason broke in the league and the Senators drafted him. I was in the PR department, and so I was kind of privy to some of that stuff that the year that they sent him down in training camp and some of the difficulties, and so to see him mature and grow from that kid who had tears in his eyes the day he got demoted at the end of training camp, to see him become a captain of that franchise, albeit just for one season. But and Matthew, you were there for and it was a tough year for him, right? Everything was in transition. Everything felt weird. I always wish he had a better situation to be the captain, because I think he would have thrived in it. And you know this too, Matt. Like, one of the things the guys always said about Jason, even in just his year as a captain, he was the guy trying to organize stuff. Like, hey, let's have a team dinner. Let's do a football pool. Let's go, whatever it is. It was Jason Spezza was the guy that tried to get it all together. That was just a tough year, the one year he was captain.
Yeah, agreed.
Mendes, do you want to tell the story about the day he was sent down?
Listen, I can, because, and I'm sure I've told it before, and I don't know, but so I'm working in the media relations department, and you guys know, and for the benefit of the viewers and listeners here, the coach's office for the Ottawa Senators is in a hallway where the media will often congregate and gather and hang out until the dressing room is open. Okay. So this is the last day of training camp. And I found out, hey, they're cutting Spezza. So I go into the coach's room or whatever. He's there and he's crying. Like he's a kid. He's 18 years old, right? So he's crying, understandably. Like, think about it. When you've made every team you've ever tried out for and you've been the star, it's got to be humbling to be demoted and cut, and in a very public way. So I go in there and he's crying, and I'm like, oh man, like, we got to get him out of the building before the media. Like, the media would have a field day if they came in with their cameras and saw this kid crying. So I come back out, and there was only one reporter there at the time. It was Alan Panzeri, who used to cover the Senators for the Ottawa Citizen. So I'm like, I go back in the coach's room. I'm like, okay, there's only one media guy here. What are we going to do? And they're like, you get Panzeri out of there and we'll take Jason out the back. And so I came back. I'm like, hey, Alan, we're doing new headshots for the media. I need to take down the security to where the security is. I'm like, you just come with me, and I take them, and they usher Jason out the other way, and he didn't have to face the media that day, which would have been fair. He was an 18-year-old kid. It was really hard. He got cut the next year too, like back-to-back years being cut. Meanwhile, Kovalchuk and like Nash, and I think I mentioned this in my article, like these guys that are drafted high in the NHL, they all get to go to crappy teams and be a -30 and show off a little bit of their skill. Jason got parachuted into a Stanley Cup contender, and I can't stress how difficult that was for him to come in and expected to be a 200-foot player right off the hop.
What prompted you to, like, because you're still a media member at that point. What prompts you to help him like that? Obviously, we all know
I was working for the team. I'm not surprised. You
were working for the team then?
Yeah. I was the media. I was in the PR department.
I legitimately, my rival. I never knew that until right now. So you had to so you had already had plenty of interactions with Spez at that point, like coordinating him throughout training camp. Totally. So then at that point, he had your trust, and you were able to take him out.
Yeah. Listen, I had his trust. The minute I knew I had Jason Spezza's trust, I was in the PR department. I had to take him out. There was like a ball hockey game somewhere, and like I had to bring him out with Willie O'Ree and Jason Spezza. I brought him, and I took these two guys in a 1997 Dodge Neon. Okay. And I'm like, if you can survive a ride in a Dodge Neon, you will trust me for life. And so, can you imagine putting your prize prospect in some guy's Dodge Neon? But that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Oh, good story.
You also hooked up with Danny Heatley and talked to him about this. So you're one of the few people that's allowed to have a chat with Danny Heatley, who lives in obscurity. How's Heatley doing at the moment? And was it good to have that conversation with him? Because I mean, that pizza line, as we call it, was dominant. Like, I'd love to see them in today's NHL of how good they would be with everybody else.
Yeah, and it was great to get. Look, listen, and it had probably been about a year since I had last connected with Danny Heatley, and the only reason why I connected with him last year was I had some people ask me a mailbag question, which is exactly like what you're asking it, which is like, what's Danny Heatley up to? What's he doing? And so I sent him a note last July, like, hey, fans want to know how you're doing. And we had a great phone conversation, and he didn't want to be quoted, but he just said, hey, can you just tell everybody, please tell people how much I love my time in Ottawa. Like, I loved it. I look back with nothing but fondness. I'd love to come back someday. I'd love to, like, I think he wants to kind of get that bridge rebuilt. And so I reached out to him again. I thought, oh man, it's Memorial Day weekend. Like, this guy, the odds of me on a Sunday of Memorial Day, I got the response within 5 minutes. He's like, hey, I'm just watching Rafa and Felix. I'll call you as soon as the match is over. I'm like, okay. Of course, that damn thing went to 5 sets. I'm like, come on. I didn't care who ended it. He called me back. But I think that is like, people are like, wow, Ian, you got Danny Heatley. That's more of a function of what he thought of Jason Spezza. Like that, like if I just reached out to him and said, yeah, if I just reached out to him and say, do you want to just chat about whatever? He'd be like, nah, I'm good. But Jason Spezza? Yeah. And I think, and Meth, I know you did kind of some media rounds on Monday. I think I saw Nick Foligno did. Like, that to me is always the testament to a player's popularity. When you reach out and say, hey, I'm doing a story on player X, and the guys are like, I want to be part of that story. So it was great to connect with him. Danny was great in talking about the pizza line, and same with Alfie. I think they were very nostalgic about that window of time.
That's awesome.
We were spoiled. We were spoiled covering that team and that particular era. Like, to look back now, you have no idea because you're in the middle of it, but to look back and appreciate of how good those groups were. I understand they did.
People argue, Wally. Yeah. People argue it's like one of the best lines like of all time.
Yeah.
Like they're in the discussion, and that might be absurd, but I'm so young.
I'm not sure.
I'm not looking back that far, but like they were that good and dominant, so
I'm not sure it is absurd. Like, my favorite part in all that was they continually tried to break the line up. And then they were like, we still need to score 5 goals tonight. So let's just put it back together.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Well, Ian, who do you like? Who would you stack up? And again, I'm stretching because my knowledge is irrelevant beyond like prior to 2000. I can't even chime in other than my favorite player was Ray Bourque. Like I don't know the lines. So are there any lines that you can look back on and think, okay, they we've got an argument here?
Yeah, like and the thing is though, in hockey history, it's often duos, right? Like it's Gretzky and Curry. Like
100%.
I couldn't tell you who the third guy was on that line. I think certainly in the salary cap era, the pizza line. If you're telling me who's the best line of the cap era, I would probably go with Boston's perfection line of Bergeron, Pasternak, and Marchand. Just that might be it. But,
and they succeeded, right? Like they did the deed and they got it done. So I guess that's where you probably edge out the other line.
But it's a short list. And remember, Spezza, Heatley, Alfredsson finished 1, 2, 3 in playoff scoring too, the 1 year, right? Like, so they did get it done in the postseason. But they are on the list. They're on the short list. And this is what happens in today's era. I think probably in the 50s and 60s and 70s, coaches probably just kept the lines together. Like nobody was tinkering and there's no analytics and there was no this guy's got a 70% expected goals with this guy. There wasn't any of that. So you would stick with lines. I think Jacques Lemaire played with Steve Schott and Guy Lafleur for years in Montreal, but it doesn't happen nowadays. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good point.
They were dominant. Jason Spezza, by the way, 687 points in 686 games with the Ottawa Senators. Number 39 to start his NHL career. By the way, people may not remember, it turns 39 on June 13th. Okay, so can we put to rest this should they retire his number in Ottawa argument? Can we stop trying to retire everybody's number because they have pretty good seasons as opposed to being absolute legends? Mendes, would you retire any number currently with the Ottawa Senators?
The only one I would consider right now would be 65. And I say that because I think Erik Karlsson, the argument could be made, nobody ever played the game at a higher level than Erik did in Ottawa. And he won 2 Norris trophies. But I'm a big believer in let's get this Ring of Honor going. And let's start to appreciate and celebrate the history of this team. And Jason would be Wade Redden, Mike Fisher, Chris Neal, like these are the guys I would put in ASAP. Craig Anderson, I would put in there. Jacques Martin, I would put in there.
Marian Hossa.
You can make an argument on a guy like Hossa. You can make some really compelling arguments on a whole bunch of guys. But Jason deserves some recognition from this organization. A point-a-game player when you're a second overall pick and you play 600 games and you do all the things that you probably thought you would do. I got him in my Ring of Honor. The jersey retirements, I think, you need to be real cautious with those. In fact, I would unretire 8 in some ways. Like I'm like, isn't that what Stützle wanted to play with? It was or Sanderson and Stützle were both like, we want to be 8. So I get it. But I'm down for the Ring of Honor.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Ian. I think, and I was saying this yesterday as well. I think that you can make a compelling. It's a no-brainer to retire the number if that person is in the Hall of Fame conversation, right? Like Alfredsson, no-brainer. Karlsson, probably. I mean, I don't know what the situation there will be, but you made the argument there with the 2 Norris trophies, and no one played at a higher level. Totally agree. But beyond that, and I'm talking about Jason Spezza here too. I think he would agree probably not to retire the number. I think Ring of Honor is the best way to honor a lot of these, like very popular players that have played here in the organization that otherwise can't have their number retired. I think that's the way to do it. You're giving them their due. They're going to get some notoriety here in the city and a little more love. You got to do that. I agree.
I am disappointed. He finishes with 995 points. I really wanted him to get to 1,000 points. That being said, he's 94th all time in NHL history in scoring. It's pretty impressive. I just think, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, no, you got to remember, like he is in my books, he's 1,000-point player because you got to remember he had a couple of seasons wiped out. Like he had the 12-13 season was cut kind of in half because of the lockup. But remember, this guy dealt with debilitating back issues for a good chunk of his career. Like there's probably he's missing 100 some odd games, 150 games, maybe even, due to lockout, COVID, injuries. Like he's probably more like an 1,100 point player when you think about the games he should have played.
100%.
And because he's such a hockey historian, it's probably going to eat at him that he's at 995. Like he's like it'll eat at him.
Sure.
But I think he can. And I love what Alfie told me too. He's like, at least he can go out with his head held high. That like he's walking out on his own terms. And there's not a lot of guys that get the opportunity to walk out on their own terms. And
no shit.
And he did.
Yeah.
He's one of, and I've said this when he played in Ottawa at his peak, arguably one of the top 3-4 players I would pay to go watch play. Like when he had the puck, you were on the edge of your seat. You had and people would say, oh, he had the turnovers at the blue line like crazy. You still had no idea what he was going to do with the puck. He was so good at handling that puck.
Yeah.
And I think he doesn't get the recognition until he went to Toronto of how good he was in Ottawa.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny. It's like, you got to go to Toronto to get your accolades. And it's so funny. Like I used to always think the people that would complain about Jason Spezza were probably the same people who complained about Barry Sanders back in the day. Great running back with Detroit. They'd be like, oh man, look how many times he gets tackled for a loss. And you can't, the guy was a magician. And Jason was a magician at his peak. Like, think about not only that goal he scored against the Habs, the one where he dekes out Sheldon Surrey and Jose Theodore, but my favorite Jason Spezza goals are the ones he comes down the right wing. It's the fake slap shot and then pull the goalie out as if the goalie's using like EA Sports manual goalie. He gets sucked out. And Jason just patiently waits and puts it. He's probably got like 30 or 40 of those in his. At some point, you would think the goalies would know, and they couldn't stop.
And another player who adopted that, and I feel like Jay had a strong influence on him, was Mika Zibanejad. Zibanejad has done that, obviously not to the same frequency, but he did it the other game. Now it was sort of a different modified version where he scored that. Which goal was it? I'm trying to remember what game it was. It's one of their last. This was it, game 6, the Rangers game. Anyway. And he goes 5-hole, and it's the same little stutter move that he does, like a little pump fake, takes it a little wider, and then shoots it. And yeah, man, Jay was so good at doing that move, and it was annoying to defend against in practice because he makes you brace on that fake slap shot. You bite on it, so he gets you straight legged and then goes around you. So very effective move, and it takes a lot of patience to pull it off. Yeah,
you know what, Wally? As we were talking, I just remembered a great Jason Spezza memory that Wally would remember. And you tell me, because I was working for Sportsnet, you were at TSN at the time, summer of 2009. So Danny Heatley asks for a trade out of Ottawa. And Jason Spezza's getting married that summer. And Danny's supposed to be at the wedding. And it turns into a great debate amongst the Ottawa media. Should the Ottawa media show up at the church? And I think they got married off of Sussex. What's the big cathedral there?
They did.
Basilica or whatever.
They did, right? Yeah.
Right by the Arts Center.
Yeah. And so we had this great debate, right? Like, I remember talking to my assignment desk, and I told my assignment desk, we should not go. I said, there'll be a time for Danny Heatley to speak. Ask him to stand on the lawn. Like, I hate the predatory vulture nature that the media can be. So I remember I actually wrote a column for sportsnet.ca back in the day. And I'm like, we shouldn't go to the wedding. And it turned into a big thing. But I got a great, like, Jason actually texted me after I wrote that story. And I never went to him before. And he sent me a text and said, hey, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate that. We really appreciate that. And just as an FYI, Danny told me he's not coming to the wedding anymore because this has turned into a shit show. And I always felt bad. That we kind of we impacted somebody's day. Like, to me, weddings, births, and funerals, like, of the, like, showing up there with cameras, are, you got to get the permission.
Right. If they don't want you there, beat it.
Outside of that, I think everything is fair game. Everything is fair game, but not those 3 days.
To that, which, by the way, everything you just said, Ian, I totally agree with. And that just speaks to your character. My only argument there is, if you're Jason Spezza and you're getting married in some grandiose style wedding downtown Ottawa, what are you really expecting? That everyone's just going to pretend like it isn't happening, right? Like,
No.
if you're looking for secrecy, then just get the fuck out of Ottawa and go down south or something. No,
here's what if the only reason is like we would have gone and covered it. I remember Ian, you and I had conversations for days or if not weeks leading up to this about, hey, are you going or am I going? Like we didn't want to have to go. And so we thought if one guy wasn't going, the other guy wasn't going to have to go either. But if this was just a normal wedding and Danny Heatley was a member of the Ottawa Senators and he was still scoring 50, we could have gone there. We would have shown up, shot some video and left. But because Heatley was embroiled in this trade demand, we needed to be there to ask Danny about it.
Okay, I understand.
That's the difference.
That's fair. All right. Good point.
Yeah.
All right. Last question about Spets. But before we do that, I just want to talk to you about
thank God.
Bonisher Excavating Inc. If you need some landscaping needs, aggregate, maybe your driveway redone, go to bonisherexcavating.com. They can help you with all that competitive pricing, all your landscape needs. By the way, 21 different kinds of aggregate. I looked it up today. Give them a call, 613-432-1120. Go to bonisherexcavating.com. BEI, helping to shape the Ottawa Valley. You talked about Mount Rushmore and who you'd pick for the media members. By the way, you left off Jeremy Roenick, which I think is a grave misstep by you. Give me the top 5 all-time Senators. There doesn't seem to be a problem with the top 4. I don't know who the 5th necessarily is, and I don't know if it's clear-cut that it should be Craig Anderson, and I'll debate why. So we'll say Alfredson, Karlsson, Heatley, Spezza would be the top 4. Is there anybody that has an objection?
Yeah, I think, like, I'm not objecting. I think people will object to Heatley. I'm not saying that it's wrong. Like, to me, I think peak Heatley belongs on the top 5.
He's got 250 goal seasons.
I also think Alexei Yashin is probably raising his hand and saying, I was a Hart Trophy nominee here.
He was a finalist. He finished second in voting at 94 points. So that's my argument. Is it Craig Anderson, Alexei Yashin, Chris Phillips, Wade Redden? Who is the 5th person on that list? I think Danny Heatley has to be there because he had 100 points. He had 2 100-point seasons, or is just the one?
You two hockey nerds can argue about it. I have no idea who the right answer is.
But I think the beauty of this is there is no right answer, right? Like my top 5 list could be different than Wally. Like I think so, and it makes for fun conversations on podcasts and stuff. But I think at the end of the day, there's going to be people that say Danny Heatley is not on my list because he walked out. Whereas I would look at it and say, guy had 2 50-goal seasons. He was a key part of a team that took you to the cup final. Like for me, he would be on the list, but I understand why people wouldn't have him on.
Erik Karlsson wanted out. Jason Spezza wanted out. I didn't hear you saying they shouldn't be on the list.
I know, but is there not an argument here that like Heatley, how many years did he play in Ottawa? 4, 5, 4. Yeah. Like, so to that point, it's like, he didn't do it. Did he do it long enough? Like, like to be in that
Ottawa,
conversation?
Right. But I get your point, but Ottawa doesn't have a long enough history. And they don't have any 50 goal scorers. So that's why.
But look at guys like Alfie, Spez, Philly, Nealer. Like these are all players that like played their whole careers not Spez. But you know what I mean?
So it's a longevity award.
Well, that has to factor into it. Like if you're talking about all these marquee players, so Ian brings up Yashin, like, and I never really watched. I was too young. I don't really remember Yashin that well.
He was dominant.
I mean, it sounds like he was pretty dominant. I mean, Hart Trophy nominee. And
can we stop here for 1 second? Methot, what year were you born?
85.
85. So when Alexei Yashin was a Hart Trophy nominee, you were 14. Like, I feel like you should have had some idea.
So to a 14-year-old, what is a Hart Trophy winner? Like, really, what I know MVP, I understand. Like, I'm just trying to
Sidney
make a point
Crosby,
here. When I'm
Connor McDavid.
When I'm 14, I was more focused on playing video games, watching the odd game that my dad was force feeding to me on TV, and being I hardly ever watched hockey. The most hockey I watched as a kid, even in my early teens, would have been Rock'em Sock'em videos.
Oh yes,
and like Mike Bossy instructional videos that my dad forced me to watch too as a kid.
Yeah,
but
those really paid off for you in the offensive zone.
Exactly, that's my point. I didn't give a shit. But then as I got it, like I'll be like when I started to really pay attention to the Ottawa Senators was when Zdeno Chara came in, and I was like, midway. I was like 15, 16. Like those early junior hockey years, I loved watching him play. Like watching that 6'8" mutant stand in front of the goalie and on the Ottawa power play. And I thought it was so cool. It was a spectacle, but prior to that, not so much. So I can't really, it's hard for me to chime in here.
Okay. So
I like Ray Bork. I thought he was really good.
So Meth would put Chara at number 5. Who Mendes is your top 5? Just give me your top 5.
So like Alfie's the lock at 1. Yeah. I think Carlson is the lock at 2 in terms of greatest players of all time. For me, it's Spezza's 3. Like, and I don't even think it's close. Like I think agree. Spezza's 3. And then where the debate comes in is 4 or 5. And like I tend to have Heatley in there, but that's because again, 50 goals multiple times. It's hard for me to deny it.
Just give me the list. We got to move on.
Okay.
Or Philly, who played like.
And then how do you say no to Chris? How do you say no to Chris Phillips? But then you're also saying no to Yashin and Chris Neal and
Redden,
Craig Anderson and Wade Redden. Like it's pretty good. Like I think where I could see the argument on Heatley is people could say Heatley belongs on the same list as Chara and Hossa, which were they were really good, but they just didn't have the longevity to put them on the top 5. So I can see that argument.
Okay, so I understand the provincial election is a couple of days away. Can you just answer the last person on the list?
More highways will help with climate change. No, sorry, but we better not get into climate change with Meth here. That Twitter.
This is just
God forbid.
God
forbid I have a sensible meet in the middle take, right? Like, no, let's just get rid of all our cars, all our gas, and live up north. Let's live up north with no natural gas. It's a really good idea. Nothing can go wrong.
All right.
Nut jobs. All right, let's continue this.
Here we go.
I want the last
we have to stop.
The last person is Phillips.
It's Phillips.
Yeah, I see. Philly's good. It's not. I don't want to say it's a safe pick, but I mean, he just played so many games. Like he was here for like 2 generations of teams, right? Like the 03 to whatever, and then the 2012 to so he was here for like 2 cycles of like legitimate teams. So I think he has to be in that conversation.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Fine. Moving on. Also wrote last week, you did a fan survey story piece on Mendes. I think 30 questions. If I'm not, it took me forever to read it. That's all I know. Lots of interesting things in there. You had 1,500 people respond. So I feel like it's a pretty good survey. A couple of things I want to talk about in those surveys. So one of them, now that you know the Sens are picking in the 7th spot and the draft, would you package the Senators first rounder for some immediate help? Yes, 76.9%. No, 23.1%. Does it seem almost a given with all the chatter? Now, I understand this is social media chatter for the most part, that this pick is going to get moved for immediate help. Ian?
It sure feels that way, doesn't it, guys? Like where Pierre Dorion's in win now mode, like as general manager, and I don't necessarily disagree. Like I know people are saying like he better not make a deal to save his job, and I'm like, that's exactly what we need here. Like we need like he's got a mixed legacy here where he's done some really good things, but he's also had some missteps. I think it's right on the edge. Like I could go either way right now on Pierre Dorion's kind of legacy or his impact here. He's on the fence, so he needs something to nudge him into the positive side of the ledger. I think using that 7th overall pick, a guy who might not play until 2025.
Exactly.
Why not? Like, just go ahead, do it. Like, I say go ahead and do it.
Yeah, no, Ian, 100% with you. I mean, you've got, first of all, it's not a deep draft. I mean, I'm not even, and I mean this sincerely, because I watched him play. I had to do a color for one of the Kingston games this year. I watched Shane Wright play, and I never try to be too critical of these young players, because I understand that there's plenty of development for them left to go. But at the same time, like for a number 1 overall pick, and I watched Slavkovsky as well play for Slovakia. He's potential number 2, maybe potential number 1. It's not a deep draft. I'll leave it at that. If there's an opportunity there for Pierre to package that 7 pick with whoever and get a legitimate top 6 forward or top 4 defenseman, you don't even think about it. You do it. I mean, Pierre's at that point, and I like what Ian said, where he's had some missteps, he's made some good moves, he's teetering right there in that middle zone. I mean, this is an opportunity now, and you're avoiding so much criticism. Just get the player; it'll appease the fan base, because ultimately that's all that matters, right? You want to have a happy fan base. That's what the game's all about. Go after that guy. I don't know who he is. I don't have the scouting in my mind to do it. I haven't been traveling the country, but if you can find a legitimate player that can come in and help, it doesn't need to be Cale Makar on defense, right? Like, it just needs to be a competent up and down player that can keep up with Chabot, complement him, and or a second line forward that can complement Stützle with a nice little scoring touch. That would be nice too. And then boom, everyone's happy going into training camp. So yeah, I'm with you in there. I think that's the play.
I agree. I think it's time to John Muckler was very good at doing this, right? He would make moves to win you Stanley Cups. He was more of a deadline guy, but he wasn't afraid to move picks to bring in guys. Whether it worked or not is another story.
But Pierre isn't either. Pierre's not shy to make moves either. Like, in fairness, like, we've seen him now. They haven't all been great, but I wonder how much of that was just tied to his constraints, right? And the spending and all that. But he's not shy to pull the trigger. So I'm just hoping that they get the right guy this summer. Because man, they're like two pieces, maybe three away from being really competitive. And now that we're watching these Stanley Cup finals, I think this is giving people perspective. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, I think we do need a defenseman, or I think we do need a forward. I think you're starting to see that depth and the importance of it, and that Ottawa is currently lacking.
I think willing to make the move and make a successful one are two completely different things. That's all.
I know.
I know. That's going fair. Out and offering Michael Del Zotto $2 million per year is. Yeah, but is that? Oh, I went out to make a move.
But I wonder how deep. Like I said earlier, that touches on my point. Like, how restricted was he? Right? Like was he given a budget? Was he told? So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered that we probably won't ever get the answers to.
Yeah, and I think too on Del Zotto. I think something that, and this got raised to me by a couple of agents in the last few months that are like, for all the criticism that Ottawa's pro scouting takes, you got to remember a lot of guys who are at the top of the UFA list or have no trade or no move clauses, they're not coming to Ottawa. So
exactly,
you can rip on pro scouting all you want, but they're not dealing with the same pool as Toronto and Colorado and whoever else you want, Tampa, whoever else you want to put. Ottawa is dealing with a different pool, and it's sometimes I think we make a mistake. And maybe I need to do a better job in that, in highlighting that they're not pulling from the same pool sometimes, and then so you don't get the premier free agents. Like, I had no problem. Del Zotto, I actually thought he was okay for them. Like, I don't know what happened, and it's $2 million. Like, you're not hurting yourself on Michael Del Zotto.
No,
like,
you're not.
No,
exactly. And not only that, but like it was hard, right? Like, he was put in a really tough situation where the defense wasn't properly, and to no fault of anybody in particular, but it wasn't properly addressed from the top down. So, everyone's looking for someone to point the finger at. And so you point the veteran journeyman right now that they bring in, no fault of his, playing on the third pairing is where he belonged. And then all of a sudden, you're still missing a top end defenseman. So he was handed a shit sandwich right from the get-go. And it was really tough for him to change that narrative. Then he gets sent down and just starts lighting it up in the American League. So he's very, very clearly still an NHL player, but just really tough situation. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Ian.
One of the things about Del Zotto, he was still leading, or he's one of the top leading defensemen scoring for Ottawa while he's playing in Bingham or Belleville for months.
Yeah, and he's selling homes in Florida. I mean, the guy's got it all. So it's like,
he's got it put together.
What can't he do?
He's living his best life. By the way, want better pay, more respect, and more job security? It's time to move to Boyd Moving. If you're an experienced mover, truck driver, just hardworking go-getter, they want you. So time to apply. BoydCareers.ca. Boyd Moving. We keep Ottawa moving, and moving right along into the next question I want to bring up. What is the bigger priority in your mind? 53.5% of the respondents said finding a productive winger for Tim Stützle, while 46.5% said finding a reliable partner for Thomas Chabot. This one surprises me, and I'm going to start with you, Beth, for the simple fact, as we know, defense wins you championships. I think it's time to address the partner for Thomas Chabot, and I think that should have been more than 50% in this poll.
Yeah. it's hard, right? Because I think we've seen what Tim Stützle is capable of now. We don't even know what his ceiling is yet, but I think that it excites a lot of people. And I think that the idea that you could bring in a legitimate player, I know Fiala was mentioned a little bit. I'm not totally sold there, but there's somebody out there obviously that'll fit well with him. But it's a really good point. We're watching the postseason now and we're seeing more and more, and we always sort of had an idea, but the importance of having a strong decor, right? Like that decor is meshed with your goaltender. And when there's a chink in that armor somewhere, it's exposed immediately. And I think that the fans are right in that 50-50 split. For the most part, it's 50-50. I think they're not wrong. You can make an argument both ways, but if you had to lean on one end, I guess I'm biased. I'm fixing the back end first. Like that's my first priority. Just get one guy. I mean, it was a revolving door, for God's sakes. Like there was no consistency in the pairings. They were always jumbling them up because you're just missing that obvious top four player that's eating 20 plus minutes a night. He's not there right now. You need him there to bring balance to your pairings. And then, up front, same situation, but a little more scoring would be nice. So you're not top heavy on the top line. You need another filler to get those points, especially if you're talking playoffs. Playoffs is not in the conversation right now as things stand. They need to make some adjustments.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree in terms of we've watched this team now. They have not been defensively responsible since 2017. Since Guy Boucher's first year in Ottawa, this team has been a train wreck defensively. And I think they got to solve that. And so I look at this and I think the best course of action is I want to see Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub. And I want to see that pairing every night because if you want Jake Sanderson to thrive in this league, you can't put him with it. Like imagine if it was Zaitsev or imagine it was somebody. You can't, right? Like you have to put him in. And so as it stands right now, you need to shelter Jake Sanderson or at least kind of get his feet wet. Got to be Artem Zub. So that takes away Shabbat and Zub. And now I think wouldn't most people be happy if your pairings were Shabbat and then some sort of legitimate top four guy, Sanderson and Zub, and then Brandstrom and Hamonic or Brandstrom and Holden. Like all of a sudden that looks okay, doesn't it?
Yes,
but it's predicated on getting a top four guy. So I tend to fall into the camp that says get Shabbat a partner.
So and just to add one more point to your point there, and I love that. It's that we saw it a lot this year and the year before where even on a good night where Ottawa might happen to have a lead going into that second period. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but how many times did they spit the bit and give up that game where a team just trailed back with like 3 unanswered goals because they were incapable of locking it down the way they should, right? And it's not just good defense, it's puck possession, it's puck management, right? It's making those good breakout passes. So to your point there, Ian, I agree. Again, I wish I could argue with you a little more, but get that top four in here, get it settled so that everybody falls into the right place and you can just roll those lines properly. And you don't have to worry about, okay, who are we going to play next shift with Shabbat? Who's going up next? Like that's a nightmare. So I'm sure Ottawa's very well aware of this. I don't even know where they begin though, Ian. Like, have you heard any names on the back end that are floating around in free agency? I realize, by the way, I'm putting you on the spot here. Yeah. I don't have any myself. I have no idea where to begin.
I think I probably should look into this in the next week or two. Like 2 years ago, Colorado got Devon Taves for 2 second-round picks. Last year, New Jersey got Ryan Graves, basically paid the same price. There's going to be a new version of Taves or Graves this season. Maybe it rhymes too. Taves, maybe you can figure this out. Taves, Graves. Is there a Hayes available? Something like that. But realistically, you're going to have to find the guy who doesn't fit somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Who just for cap reasons doesn't fit. Like I thought they actually did a pretty good job with Matthew Joseph was a great example of you took a player that likely wasn't going to fit into Tampa's plans, but he can fit into yours. Now go do it with a defenseman. Go find a guy and give them something that they need. And you take that contract off their hands. Like, the one guy, and I'd love to connect with my colleague who works out of Winnipeg. Dylan DeMello is the guy that I always think to myself, man, that guy would have been the perfect fit.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And he was because I was watching him play like throughout the year and I'm like, he's getting some pretty big minutes there. I mean, it wasn't like he sort of fell off the radar once he left Ottawa. Typically when you get traded away from relatively bad team. It's not necessarily going to be greener on that other end, right? Because it kind of speaks to your play, but it just didn't work for him here, and it wasn't working with the coaches. So he moves on, and he played pretty well. Could you bring him back in? I guess. Now, how would that look with Shabbat? Is he a capable top pairing defenseman? Maybe, I guess. But I mean, there's some players floating around out there, but I just don't see the fit. Like, you've got some free agents, like as Letang hasn't re-signed yet. Klingberg's another guy. Like, there's a bunch of names, but they don't fit. Like, they're not the right pieces. Not to mention, they probably, to your point earlier, they probably wouldn't want to come here anyway. So you got to find the right guy that's sort of just getting squeezed out of the lineup. Like, it's a good example. When I was in Dallas that year that I got traded to Ottawa, they had just drafted Murray on defense. What's his first name? I forgot. You think I would know this? The first round draft pick by the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Ryan Murray.
Ryan Murray. I even played with him at the Worlds. You'd think I'd remember his name. They picked him up immediately, made me expendable, and I got traded right after that, right after the World Championship. So I was an example of a defenseman that was still relatively in my prime, but it just didn't work in Columbus. We were losing a lot of games there. Time to move on. And I ended up in Ottawa. So there's got to be that guy out there somewhere, to your point again, where it's like, okay, let's gauge his interest. Now, I don't know how that works with players and agents. Like, can a general manager gauge a player's interest with regards to a destination by just having a conversation? Is that allowed? Do we know? Like, can an agent reach out? Can a general manager reach out to a potential pickup to that agent and be like, hey, would your player be interested in playing here? Like, is that a common thing? Do we know?
No, I think that, does that not fall into line of tampering? Like, you're basically
tampering. Yeah.
Is it tampering?
Yeah.
I think so.
Even if you haven't re-signed and you're a free agent going into the summer, it's still technically tampering.
A UFA, it might be. I don't know. That's
no. Once you hit this year, I think it's July 13th.
Yeah,
whatever it is this year.
But not even prior to that.
No, I don't think you can. Because
that's why they had to open up that window. The free agent chatter window that Alfie went to Detroit over.
Okay,
right.
Then I'm going to stop talking.
Well, no, but if you think about it, let just real quick use Ottawa as an example. And Ottawa's got one more year of Artem Zub, right, under a contract.
Right.
How would Ottawa feel if, and I think Dan Milstein reps Artem Zub. Yeah. Imagine Steve Yzerman phoned Artem Zub's Dan Milstein right now and said, hey, just curious, when you get to 2023, would you the Senators would be sideways.
But there's got to be a way to verbally get that across without.
Oh, I'm sure. Now,
right? Like,
and I'm sure
hypothetically speaking, you're exactly. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus.
Okay, I got two questions before Mendes has to go. Do you believe Pierre Dorion is the right general manager to get this team to the next level where they can be a legitimate playoff team? Last year, yes, 54.1%. This year, 25.9% says he is the right GM. I'm surprised by the drop because this seemed to be a team trending upwards. So, Mendes, I'm going to start with you. Were you surprised to see this particular number come in?
No, I mean, I knew it would be less than last year. Like when last year came around, I thought, 50, people were pretty much split on him 50-50. I thought the number would probably come down. My thought was 30%, maybe 35%. But I think the response to this question underscores the importance of the summer for Pierre Dorion. And I think, in fairness to him and the DJ Smith and everybody, let's revisit this question 3 months from now. Because if he has landed the piece or two that we say that he needs, then all of a sudden I think that 25% comes back closer to 50%. And then we see how it plays out on the ice, and then maybe that 50% number goes up. But in the here and the now, you can only judge people on what they've done to date. And to date, they have not brought in the pieces that they need. And it feels like there's two strikes on the general manager, and maybe he's fouled off a couple of pitches. And now it's like, okay, well, it's a 3-2 count here, and he's got to make solid contact here.
That's a good analogy.
That's good, lame really baseball smooth analogy.
And the way you finished it off too, that was very nice. No, I'm with you. I think right now is probably, well, you like Ian mentioned, you can judge him based off of what he's done up to date. And there have been some questionable pickups for sure, obviously, with some of the players, even last year, right? With it never worked with Goodbranson, it never worked with Coburn. And then, of course, this year there's been a couple moves, but there have been some good acquisitions as well. So like Holden, I thought was a really good acquisition, for example, just one guy. But in any case, I think revisiting this question at the end of the summer is the way to do it, because then we can see, okay, have you made the moves that you were telling everybody you were going to make? And if not, then that 20% is probably a legitimate reflection. But right now, I mean, that number can fluctuate. As soon as he picks up a top 6 or a top 4 on the back end, people, all of a sudden, everyone's enthusiastic and going, great job. Like, we're doing the right thing. So, I think we revisit this in August and have another conversation about it.
Okay. I will leave it with that. Last question I have for you two before Ian has to go. And that is, what's the dumbest way you've been injured?
One time, this player from the Penguins had his stick, and well, we know Matt's answer. Okay, so I got 2. In fact, one that I'm currently recovering from, which is I tore I think they call it a grade 2 tear of my hamstring, rounding third base in a Sunday night softball league.
No.
First game of the hadn't played in years. I'm like, I'm really excited to play, and rounding third, heading for home, and wait, those are the lyrics to Center Field, isn't it? Rounding
Something
third,
like
heading
that.
for home. Hey, I'm a brown-eyed handsome man too. Look at that. Okay, sorry. He's
out of control, folks.
Hey, what am I doing here? I didn't do my podcast this week, so I'm like just full of lameness. So anyway, I have a grade 2. That was about 3 weeks ago. I've been cleared for light pickleball activity, so I've been able to do that while it's all taped up. But the worst injury I ever had, the only time I've never, this will be the least surprising story of all time. I have never broken a bone, and only one time have I ever got stitches. 3 stitches in the back of my head because when I was, I guess, 11 years old, I was racing back to my TV because Silver Spoons was on. Okay. And I was running down because I heard the show had restarted. This is before you could PVR things. Yeah. And I ran and I jumped back on my couch to sit down and watch the show. And I hit my head. I missed the back and I cut the back of my head, and I required stitches from watching Silver Spoon. So,
wow. Nice.
Mendes say, Meth, how do you top that?
I mean, I've had a lot, so I pick your poison, right? I don't know. I've the amount of stitches on my face alone. When I was a kid, I fell down a tree and I skid my way down like this really thick bark. It was an old willow tree at my cottage. So my entire body was covered in one big massive rash, maybe. I don't know. I've had a lot of them for sure. But the pinky one's probably the dumbest one, right? Like, it didn't need to happen. He got me in the perfect spot on my glove that never happens. Like it influenced an NHL rule following season. So yeah, that would probably be it. The pinky finger.
But were all the stitches on your face as a result of hockey?
No, a little bit of both. No, I've had a bit of both. I've had a fish hook in my face too, I think, when I was a kid.
Okay.
Stuff like
casting?
that.
Were you casting it or somebody else?
I was casting it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was caught up on a tree that was overhanging the dock, and I was trying to yank it down, and I pulled it too hard, and one thing led to another.
Tree related issues here. I think we need to delve into this.
Well, that's living, man. I wasn't sheltered as a kid. My parents let me go and play, and I got hurt a lot.
So, what we've learned from this,
that's
Meth
a side
is a tree
swipe
hugger.
at me. Yeah.
No. That really wasn't, Ian. Sorry. Yeah. I am. Listen, I'm not some crazy guy that's going to leave my one of my vehicles running all day in the driveway. Like, I get it. We need to make a lot of changes. I'm just not on the extreme end. And it's always the same people that are on the extreme end. It's the people that have no kids, that live in the glebe and just want to sing Kumbaya downtown all day. And I'm just not that person. Wow. So you guys can cringe. I don't give a shit. I don't care.
Okay. By the way, I
took a shot at people in the glebe. The people in the glebe are the same people that complain about the music being too loud at Lansdowne Park. So it gives you a little perspective.
Well, I will say that they're the ones that complained about the flyovers at Red Blacks games, and they had to change the rule to let people know that there was going to be a flyover.
Yeah.
Because people
God
thought we were
forbid
under
there's
attack.
noise downtown when you live downtown.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought, right? So it's crazy.
I've only had one broken bone ever, Mendes, so I'm almost like you, the tip of my toe. Canadian Tire has cost me a lot of injuries, but probably the dumbest one is you had to walk down the stairs carrying a lawnmower unassembled in a box, and there was just angle iron as walls. It wasn't like drywall, and so I bumped into the wall, and as I'm bringing the lawnmower down to give to the customer, they went, "Oh," and I was like, "Oh." And so I cut open a gash in my elbow that required 5 stitches. So they're like, "You should probably go get that taken care of." I'm like, "You're absolutely correct. I will." So as I'm going to find somebody to drive me now to the hospital for like the 3rd time at Canadian Tire, they're paging me to come to the front desk. I'm like, as I'm walking out, they're like, "You brought the wrong lawnmower." I was like, "Oh, no." Anyway, somebody had to go get the other lawnmower
So that reminded me of a time where I was riding my bicycle as a 10-year-old. And you guys ever remember used to putting, like, you'd roll over a can of Coke or something and it would make like a cool motorized sound when it got stuck. And so the can had to be like rejigged as I was biking. And because I was such an intelligent young man, I thought, I'm just going to do this while I'm cycling. And I grabbed a stick that I had in my hand, because I had to have a stick in my hand. And I tried jamming it into like near the spokes to fix the can and adjust it. And it got caught in the wheel and I face planted on the pavement. And my whole entire face was cut up. So that is another situation that happened.
That might be the front runner.
How old were you when this happened?
I think I was 10. I think it was around that age. I was driving a black Norco bike, and that bike ended up getting stolen out of my garage like a year later. And a year after that, I found it locked by like a post op, one of those little like mailboxes. And I had to go back home because no one was around the bike. And when I came back, it was gone. And so that elusive moment where I just decided to leave, it still haunts me to this day. Ian.
But now, how do you know? Like, black Norco bikes were pretty popular there in the 90s. What was the defining mark that you knew that was your bike?
I just knew. It was mine.
Yeah,
now I didn't have the serial number written down.
The stick and the spokes was the dead giveaway.
Anyway, that's enough of that shit. But yeah, thanks for entertaining my stories, guys.
Well, I've got other questions, but we're gonna have to leave it for today. So,
Ian, quickly, Ian.
Yeah.
Is Montreal going to switch their picks? I'm curious to hear what you think.
Ooh.
Are they going to? This doesn't need to be a long conversation. Are they going with Shane Wright as the number 1?
I think and this is going to sound silly, but I think when you're hosting the draft, that's a factor. Like, as dumb as that sounds,
go with the safe pick.
No. I think if they are interested in somebody else, I think I could see them saying, "Okay, we won't take Shane Wright, but you give us something, but we're keeping the first pick." And maybe New Jersey, or you know what I mean? Like, there's just something about picking first overall when you're hosting the.
Shit.
What? At 10 o'clock, it just shuts down an hour in.
Oh, what happened?
You froze. I don't know.
You just said,
I want you to
have the first pick.
I want to.
Then froze.
Yeah. There's something that changes when the home team hosts.
Yeah.
And then you.
So I think it's pretty rare to host the draft and have the first overall pick. I'd have to go back and look, but
yeah,
given the year that they've had in Montreal, how could they tell their fan base we're trading down? Now, I think what you could do is say we're trading. We're not taking Shane Wright. We're taking somebody else, but we're keeping the first overall pick. But we'll give away some. Well, you give us something to not take Shane Wright, but we're picking first. I can see that. Maybe.
That's fair.
That makes sense.
Good insight.
Okay, 2 things. Just tell me your 2 conference final winners. That's it.
Oh, I was so wrong.
No, not you.
Round.
Hang on. We'll do this after. We'll go over ours after.
Yeah.
So Mendes, give me the 2. Who's your Stanley Cup finalist?
What I love about this, whatever combination we have, it's going to be a great final. But I'll go Tampa, unless like the Rangers got here because they've played 3rd string goalies. Now you're getting Vasilevskiy. So give me Tampa and give me Colorado, just because I think Colorado's a little bit deeper than Edmonton. But I don't think you can go wrong with any combination here.
Your politicking is off the charts this week.
He's right. Do you want me to wait till Ian gets off?
Yeah, we'll let you go. Ian, good luck in the election, and we'll chat with you soon.
Hey, thanks for for having me, guys. Have a great week. And I can't believe, by the way, like when you guys thought about it's episode 69, you really thought I was the best fit for that?
Okay, here's a tip. We never pay attention to the numbers.
Okay.
True.
Yeah. But I will say, please like and subscribe because I don't say that enough, apparently. And anyway, Mendes, see you, pal. Take care.
We'll see you guys.
Okay. There goes Ian Mendes from The Athletic. Check out all his stuff online. It is very good. Okay, Meth, we'll make this quick. So your round 2 did not go very well.
No.
So I got to find it, but you basically went 1-3.
Yeah, I got the Florida Panthers series wrong, right? I had Florida moving forward. They lost.
Florida in 6. You had Carolina in 6.
Yeah.
Calgary in 7.
And Calgary. Yeah, that's right.
And Colorado in 5.
I was very wrong and very surprised. I mean, I thought at least 3 of those that I got wrong, I thought at least 2 of them would be correct. Like the Calgary series. Okay, great. I could understand that. That was a bit of a coin flip, and McDavid was out of his mind.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, I know you were trying to wrap it up. I'm going to go, with the Oilers, it's interesting because unless McDavid plays, unless he literally drags his team again for a 3rd round, which by the way, he's fully capable of doing it. Unless he does that by himself again with Draisaitl, I just don't see it happening. And Colorado's just a little deeper, and they're not as deep as we think they are in comparison, but they have the edge for sure. They've had good goaltending as well. Whereas Oilers, they're a little more inconsistent. So I'm going to go with the Avs in 6, and I'm going to go with Tampa.
Okay, wait, hang on. So just before we get to the East, so I'm going to give you this note, a couple if you want, but Mike Smith has a career record of 13-1-5 against the Avalanche. The only club he has fewer than 2 regulation losses against in his career. Darcy Kemper is 10-2-4 in 16 appearances against the Oilers. Does that matter whatsoever?
I don't think it does now. Now you can't ignore the numbers. The numbers do tell a story for sure. Yeah. But now we're talking the 3rd round here. We're talking conference final. Like all bets are off. It's anybody's game. We've seen it, right? Like we almost beat Pittsburgh in 2017. So, for me, it'll come down to like the defense core. So I think you obviously have to give the edge to Colorado. They're a little smaller, but they move the puck so well. And in a puck possession style series like this one, I feel like that immediately gives them the edge. I thought Calgary was going to do a better job at shutting down the Oilers. McDavid was just that good. He was just that good. So, I give Colorado the edge here for sure. I don't think that's a hot take. And I'm going to stick with that in 6.
All right. Colorado in 6. I do like Colorado. I don't like to be the same as you. And I still wanted to pick the Rangers.
Don't go against the grain just for this. Yeah. Don't be a contrarian. Like,
but they have, so Connor McDavid is without question playing out of his mind. Leon Draisaitl, by the way, has 5 straight games with at least 3 points, which is an NHL record, not just a playoff record, an NHL record.
I know. He's pretty good.
Can they shut those 2 horses down is the question. I do like Colorado. We liked them at the beginning of the year. I will still stick with them. I'll just have to pick a different number. So I'm going to go Colorado in 5.
That's not that hot. Like that's still a pretty good call, Wally. I'd
Mike
like
Smith.
right now,
I don't know which
it's doable.
I don't know
exactly
which Mike Smith you get.
You don't know what you're going to get. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Agreed. So moving on. And I wanted to pick the Rangers, and I'm mad because you guilted me going, you weren't allowed to pick Mika Zibanejad because you liked him. So I chose Carolina. But damn it.
Yeah, but they were, that was a disappointing series. I mean,
well, yeah, if you can't win on the road,
man? It was ridiculous. And but every game was in a way lopsided, right? Like you didn't have a lot of tight games in that series. So I was very disappointed with that series. Overall, as the playoffs have gone on, this has been one of my favorite years. Full disclosure. My interest level is sky high, but that was a downer. So now you've got Tampa, you've got the Rangers, you've got 2 unbelievable goaltenders. I mean, I know Noodles is going to be extremely happy to be paying attention to this series. So I don't know. I mean, Shesterkin's been fantastic. Oh,
okay. I got some notes for you.
I'm going to let you go first. Okay? You go first.
By the way, I've labeled this the Freddie Kleisen Cup because he played for both of those teams, and we like him as an Ottawa Senator. So in the Freddie Kleisen Cup, does it matter that the Rangers won all 3 meetings this year. Does that play a factor in your decision? No. Okay. It's Mika Zibanejad, by the way, has the most assists in a Game 7 in Rangers history. He improved to 4-7-11 in contests when facing elimination, tied for the most in NHL history in a single postseason. I think that they're playing at a pretty good clip, but I can't go against Nick Paul. And I don't think Braden Point comes back, but that didn't seem to really bother them in round 2.
No. And you don't want to cheer against, and it's like, no. I don't want to cheer against Nick Paul either.
No.
So, like, I genuinely want to back this team. Right. And Wally,
yeah.
Experience.
Well, that's like huge, right?
Rangers, a little younger. This is new for them. And this is now you're in the dance now. Like, this is the big stage.
Yes.
Only 4 teams left. Everyone's watching every night. So
every night you are the main focal point.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of pressure there, and you're playing at MSG. I know they play very well at home, but I think with the experience that Tampa brings to the table, and if they're relatively healthy going into the series, despite Point's injury, I mean, you've got Vasilevskiy. I mean, how do you bet against that? And then Kucherov, all of us, like, he's going to be fired up. You're, New York City, you're on the big stage. He loves the attention. He loves playing big games. Like, I just think with that lineup and that much depth, you can't bet against Tampa.
So I'm going to say Tampa in 6, but I think they lose game 1 because of the layoff. The Rangers are coming right off the emotional high. They're still rolling, and Tampa hasn't played in like 9 days or whatever it is.
If Tampa can keep that game, if Tampa can keep the game tied after 1 period, I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to win that first game if they remain at least tied or better coming out of the first period, specifically the first 10 minutes.
Okay. Did you make a pick? You said 6.
Or I guess I didn't say, did I? No, I'm going to call Tampa. I want to say 6, but I'll say 7. I'm going to say Tampa in 7, just to be different.
It should be a good
I like
series.
6.
By the way, you can go place your bets at sportsinteraction.com. Go to sportsinteraction.com/Wally Methot. By the way, there's so much stuff you can go in there. The parlays are a lot of fun to do too. But lots of time to get your bets in. I still think it's a Tampa Colorado final, and I think it's one that will be very fun to watch down the stretch.
Man, absolutely.
And that would be enjoying a couple of Whitewaters. Make sure you try out their new flavors. Also North South, which is very good, and Kiwi Lime Sour. Use the 15% off coupon at wham-funky fresh is the coupon. Shop whitewater.ca. Meth, good luck. It is June now. We're going to take a break for a bit, and we will let you know when we're going to be back. But we're going to enjoy
maybe the draft.
Hey, what do you think? We're going to let Craig have.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah, Craig's going to have a bit of fun. He's going to have a little vacation, and so we're going to come back a bit later and have.
Craig has a boys' weekend coming up here. I guess he's leaving with the boys on Thursday. Yeah, so let's pray for Craig.
So okay, all right. So now, Craig, can you join us?
Yeah, come on in for a
What's up, boys? What's happening? Yeah, little boys weekend.
See, I didn't want to do this because I don't want him to say anything that may incriminate him later.
Oh, but I want to see if I can still party. Let's find out. It's been a while. We've been in lockdowns. Like, full disclosure, I don't drink a ton. We're gonna see what happens if we ratchet things up here a little bit, boys.
I'm like you, Craig. Like, I'll get all fired up and I'll talk a big game leading up to it, and then like 9 p.m. rolls around. I'm like, I just vanish. Like, I Houdini out of the room and I'm gone, and I'm usually in my bed. So
you would hate.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say you would hate our accommodations. We got an Airbnb somewhere downtown, and there's 11 of us. So it's it's just the first thing I said, and I don't think they're going to bite. It's like I should probably have my own room. That's how I feel, but I don't think that's going to happen. So that's going to be
like a grown man, like having to share a room with another guy a couple of feet over. It's always awkward, or just a stranger in general.
Yeah,
right?
Hopefully I don't get any watch theft or snoring or some of the things I hear from you guys. But yeah, it's not going to be a lot of privacy, and we're going Thursday till Sunday, so it's like, oh boy. Hopefully nobody gets on each other's nerves, because that'll be
keep your lawyer on speed dial.
We're gonna keep it'll keep things interesting and less spicy. So
Craig, before you go, I have a question about Andre Vasilevskiy. The story came out this week about his draft and being in Ottawa, and it didn't name the water park, but all this stuff ties into Ottawa. So do you want to take us through what you know about the Andre Vasilevskiy and why Ottawa didn't pick him at
Yeah.
15. That's Eric Carlson, right?
No,
Is that Eric?
Cody
No.
Ceci.
Cody Ceci. My apologies.
Yeah. So that was the year. I don't know. We did kind of, the draft was where Pittsburgh, I think, that year. We're doing our kind of standard draft coverage, and all the guys come in for their visits or whatever, and they skate at Sensplex, and we're kind of covering that part of it. And we were supposed to do one with a goalie, and that didn't happen. And so he allegedly. I don't want to say allegedly. I think it's pretty official now. Him and his family went to Calypso for the day before, because well, you mentioned like he's summers here sometimes and trains here sometimes, so he's familiar with the area. And so anyways, they went to Calypso, and he just got super sunburned, and he couldn't put his gear on, so he was supposed to go on the ice the next day, and he couldn't do it. So I don't think that was the reason why they didn't pick him. I don't think they loved that happened or whatever else, but they weren't really picking Russian guys then anyways. And I know they were super high on Cody Ceci, so the fact that he was there at 15 didn't matter. That Vasilevskiy went four picks later, I think. Like he was a project goalie, right, out of Russia.
And it's like in hindsight, right? You're like, well, why didn't you guys pick him? I'm like, you're talking about an unknown Russian goaltender in the first round. Like, come on. So I think people have to pump the brakes with the criticism for those who are criticizing, right?
It's a funny story. Like, they didn't take him because he got sunburned at Calypso. Like, it's funny if you just tell it like that. And that's usually like, but before it kind of came out this week, that's how I would jokingly tell that story, is like, if only he didn't go to Calypso. But that probably didn't actually have anything to do with it. It's more just kind of fun Sens lore at this point.
Okay, I just have one. We've all had sunburn at some point. I don't ever remember not being able to get dressed or function with sunburn. Do either of you remember a time you've been that badly burned?
You can get a mild version of heat stroke, right? Like if you get peppered with that sun for long enough. Yeah. I mean, if you're just even a little soft, I mean, that can mess with you, and it can make you feel a little nauseous. So I'd have to give people the benefit there. I mean, I've had some bad burns in the past where they haven't been very pleasant. So I can relate a little bit, but I understand your point, Wally. And more importantly, what are you expecting? Like, what do you think's going to happen if you're under the heat lamp all day? I mean, you're going to get burnt. It reminds me of that time. And I saw the picture on my phone of Dion in Florida at Fort Lauderdale with that bad burn. And it was so bad that the opponents, like Florida Panther players, were looking at him in warmups and laughing. Like we were all dying. It was a joke. So it's possible, but Dion, it was a tough bastard, played through everything. And that was a good example of a guy that was able to do it. So
I just think if your NHL future is in the card somewhere, that you could probably
maybe just stay home. Maybe stay home. I'm with you. I agree.
I've seen it happen to guys at dev camp before, right? Where they're out doing the all the like army stuff, and you're out in the sun all day, and guys don't really think about it. And then they got to put their gear on, and they're just like red. That
army stuff. Like we had some guy like Hitch. Hitch is a huge history buff, like Ken Hitchcock, and loves his war stories. He reads a ton of books on it. And so he would always hire a bunch of SEALs to come in and run like these crazy boot camps prior to training camp. So we'd have to carry these 90-pound shells. Like, that was part of, you'd have to carry each other through these like little obstacle courses. And one of them I can still remember, like 3 days before our regular season starts, and I'm lugging as a rookie this 90-pound like huge bullet, like a big shell with another player. And I'm like, and I can still remember, Craig, Wally, halfway through it, I'm like, why am I doing this? What is the goal here? Yeah. I'm just taking some heavy object from point A to point B, probably going to hurt myself and play like shit in 3 days. And sure enough, that's what happened. We got pumped for the first few games.
And you're just a dumb rookie in the NHL, right? Did you even consider putting on sunscreen?
Obviously not. I mean,
exactly. So
hold on, guys. I got to go put on SPF 50. I'll be right back. Like, no, it doesn't come out of your mouth.
That's how it happens, I think. And now, granted, he was at a water park and you were at a thing. But
and Hitch is a great coach. Like that's not me chirping Hitch, but I am chirping Hitch when it comes to that stuff. And it wasn't just him. I've had other coaches do it too. Like they get these ideas, coaches, where they're like, okay, we're going to take all our players out in the middle of nowhere, and they're going to have to do all these crazy things together. Like we already all knew each other. It's not like it was a ragtag group of guys on an expansion team. Like 3/4 of the team was very familiar with each other, yet we're still doing these insane activities. Like take us to Fort Lauderdale for 4 days. Like let me go on the beach.
It's that romantic kind of like, the guys are gonna bond and they're gonna bullets.
bond.
They're gonna
Put
be in
them
the
through Hell
trenches
Week
together. Yeah, and it's just like they'd probably appreciate a day off or something.
Anyway, yeah, it's all good.
But yeah.
I'm done.
All right. Well, speaking of days off, enjoy them and make sure you lather up as you go outside, boys.
Yeah.
All right.
Take care. Thanks for everybody watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks to all our sponsors, by the way, BEI, Sports Interaction, Whitewater. Enjoy some of those this weekend. And Boyd Moving. Take care, everybody. We'll talk soon.
Bye.